Hi everyone, this is Arpad from the YouTube channel StorePath Academy, and today I'm going to share a story that someone shared with me in the comment section. And I think it's important because I know why you need gold and silver through first-hand experience through living through the 90s in Romania and hyperinflation. However, I think it's very important for others to share stories as well, and I try to share that with you. So I'm going to read this comment that Happy Funny Foo left here. Great grandparents lived through Germany's hyperinflation. Government increased money supply 9 times and prices increased 9 times between 1914 and 1920. From 1920 to 1921, Germany had a prosperous boom as money supplied increased 2-3 more times, but prices were completely flat or deflating as the world absorbed and stored the extra marks in huge quantities. The magma chamber of the inflationary potential was stoked. Then the unrealized depreciation of the mark gave way. Prices rose. The central banks strove mightily to print faster than the depreciation rate, and the entire world unloaded their marks, flooding the German money supply with all the stored up paper. In 1922 and 1923. By late 1923, my great-grandfather's neighbor was hoarding pianos in hopes he could trade them for a little food, and died of starvation holding 9 pianos in his house. The mark collapsed from 4.2 to $1 in 1914 to 1943. In 1920, strengthened to 36 to $1, but by 1921 and by the end of the late 1923 was approximately 4,215,000,000,000 to $1, although not really knowable. The lessons learned are 1. That the absolute massive industrial powerhouse of an economy is just as susceptible to the most incredible possible collapse imaginable. You are not safe because you live in an economic superpower. Take reasonable precautions. Number 2. If the money supply is expanding dramatically beyond what the price level should be, unrealized depreciation is occurring and someone will pay later. This is a systemic problem today due to all the stored fiat around the world, with maximum risk being held by the world reserve currency, the dollar, which has been absorbed by tens of the trillions. Once prices began rising and faith is lost, stored in the stored currency is dumped all at once, causing prices to rise proportionate to the unrealized depreciation rate. This is also why communist nations tend to run bank holidays heading into hyperinflation to slow money velocity. And number 3, it is better to plan ahead and have some substitute money than it is to end up in a situation where you are trading pianos for food. So that was his comment, and I hope it touched you somewhat, and that kind of explains a lot, right? And also a lesson learned would be that don't rely on trading during the height of the hyperinflation, the worst part of it, because it's way better if you can have some food already stored, or a mechanism or a way how you can make food or work for a neighbor for food, because you're not running the risk of trying to trade something for food and getting a raw deal, or even worse than that, getting no deal. So even if you have gold and silver, don't imagine it's going to be as easy as pie to just trade a couple of pieces of silver for it, because that opens you up for other problems, like people knowing that you have silver or gold, right? So you got to watch out for all of that, and you want to make sure that you don't even trade unless it's necessary during those times, and making sure that you're getting the better end of the deal. So making sure that you have other tradable items like cans of food, or freedom pills, or some other stuff that you can trade that is not as valuable as gold and silver during those times. So, and we talked about like what else you can do, barterable stuff. Now, yeah, there are other lessons here as well, and some are actually hard to say, but it's true that these events are rarely random. They are usually planned by an international banking cabal that kind of sits above nations and, preys on them, and as soon as they arrive, they're in for the taking. So, and that is where they harvest most of the productivity and wealth of the nation during these events. So this has happened over and over and over again in almost every single country. There are actually probably very few that didn't go through this. Now maybe the severity is not that bad as the case of Germany, or the case of the Hungarian penge during the similar time, or the Romanian lei, or you name it. Pretty much every country has went through something like this. So I really am glad when people reach out from Poland, people reach out from Serbia, and you name it, and they say, hey, I remember the 90s and it was like that, and this is what my father did. Or, hey, my grandparents told me this. Because sometimes, honestly, I just feel like I'm alone and I'm shouting into the dark, and people are, you guys are listening, but I feel like, dude, this happened to like 21 million Romanians. Like, you need to let the world know, and you need to, the Polish people need to let the world know, and the Russian people need to let the world know that these things occur again and again, and it's planned. And to some degree, some of the animosity of the Russian people was directed towards the West, because they felt that, they, after the communist leaders have taken advantage of them for so long, now the West, the solution that was put on them was also just as bad. So that is why they have been, pushed back and forth from the West to the current government, from the West to the current government. And, people don't learn. And not just the Russians, I'm saying, but people generally, especially people who didn't went through, like the Western countries, like the Western European countries, including USA, Canada, and Australia, and so on and so forth. They just have a hard time learning. And that's why I'm here. So hopefully to remind you of that. One thing he also said that was very important was the money velocity. So you can actually measure that through the Fed. So that is the Federal Reserve. It puts out charts, right? And you can take a look at how the money velocity is picking up. And it's not necessarily, here's the fact. You can get away with printing money as long as it just sits in some repos and reverse repos and you name it. As long as it doesn't do anything, right? Or Bitcoin is sucking it up or whatever. As long as it doesn't circulate, it feels that it's not there. So you can overprint for a very long time and not get any effect of it. But as soon as that first wind picks up and people start spending it, and then they get scared because the value of everything is going up, so the faster they spend it, the better deal they get, like with everything else. If you would have bought something last year, 3 years ago, it would have been a better deal for you than purchasing it now. So that means people will wake up to this and they want to spend their money now and they don't want to store it. And at some point, you cannot gain faith back. So no matter what interest rate you put, because it just, people realize that you've been empty, you had a bunch of empty promises as in the Federal Reserve, and they just lose the faith that you can solve this anymore. And that's when it really kicks off. So will it happen? When will it happen? It's, up for debate. But the way we are continuing, we're definitely going down that path. So what do? Well, as I said, make sure that you have a way how to produce food or stored food and barter for food with some items. And beyond that, make sure that you have safety, you have ways how you can protect yourself, your family, and your community. So if you have all of that, then you're going to probably be better off. Now, some people, right, even my family to some degree, came out wealthier after hyperinflation, but that was because there's a pattern to hyperinflation and you can recognize it. There's a pattern how things go up in price in waves, right? So this is what I started talking about very early on in this channel, that usually the waves start with raw materials, then once those go up, then down the chain it goes to stuff that is produced from raw materials, and so on and so forth. Then it eventually gets to real estate. So we had that wave, of course, as well. So after real estate, it will get to food. We had that wave as well. After that, it will get to precious metals. We are in that wave right now, right? Eventually, guess what? Yes, whether you believe it or not, and it's probably going to be in the next administration, but wages will rise again. Now, never to the degree that you would need to have, but either wage rises or government subsidies kind of compensate for the missed price differences, and you're going to get government help, which is also just wages rising, and then again the loop starts over. So the waves come back again and again. This has been observed by my family, and that what we have been using for a long time, and anyway, so great stuff. I really like when people share their stories and share their knowledge on the channel, and join Telegram, and we can chat there as well, and ask questions, because I'm committing to answering 500 questions, and we're currently at question number 2, moving on to number 3. So you still have time to move your questions in and be part of the community, and see you there. And be sure to follow the channel and comment, because we need to feed the algorithm. All right, bye. Talk to you next time.